Jesus spoke to the crowds and to his disciples, "Do not be called Rabbi. You have but one teacher, and you are all brothers. Call no one on earth your father. You have but one Father in heaven. Do not be called Master. You have but one Master, the Christ. The greatest among you must be your servant. Whoever exalts himself will be humbled, but whoever humbles himself will be exalted." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord.
My dear brothers and sisters, this morning we celebrate in particular the feast of St. Thomas Aquinas, and it is so important for us since the title of our church is St. Thomas Aquinas. Therefore, as a church, we celebrate it as a titular solemnity. Titular coming from the word title, meaning that since the church is named after St. Thomas, we celebrate his memorial with even more solemnity. Hence the Gloria, hence the two readings. We're also going to be reciting the Creed as well. Isn't it going to be fun? The readings today give us a glimpse of the importance of wisdom. St. Thomas Aquinas is a doctor of the church. He was known for trying to bring about a systematic understanding of the faith. He was actually pretty avant-garde during his time in relying upon the philosophy of Aristotle that was coming to the University of Paris via Oxford, via actually the Spanish. Long story, I won't go into the history. I've been reading up on it. I'll bore you some other time over a drink. But what we hear is this, that even with our understanding of theology, there is still a wisdom that escapes us, and that is Christ, the wisdom of God, the incarnation, God whose wisdom decides not to come in ways that are necessarily understandable, but in a mysterious way, taking on our flesh and then dying on the cross. And that seems like foolishness to both the Greeks and the Jews. We hear that in the first letter of St. Paul to the Corinthians. Jesus reminds us that even if we have certain titles, that we are not to rely upon those titles. That, in fact, we are called to all be disciples of Jesus, to have him as our master and our teacher. And this, we could say, is also one of the things that made St. Thomas Aquinas such a great theologian, was that he never lost an understanding of deep prayer and contemplation. Of course, it was the Dominican kind of contemplation, which would look for learning and to fill the mind and the understanding, and to seek union with God by trying to understand more and more about faith and enter into the mystery of God in that way. But at the end of his career, St. Thomas Aquinas had a mystical experience in which he realized that everything he had written was like straw compared to the actual mystery of God. And in fact, in Italy we were given, his famous words were "paia," which means straw. That he considered his own writings, which the church holds in great revere today, straw in comparison to Jesus. St. Thomas Aquinas, we know, was very instrumental in some of the great feasts that we celebrate, especially the feast of Corpus Christi. There's the famous story of St. Bonaventure and St. Thomas Aquinas both being commissioned by the Pope to write the liturgical prayers for the newly instituted Feast of Corpus Christi. And when St. Bonaventure read St. Thomas's prayers, he took his own and threw them on the fire. Such was the humility of Bonaventure. But we know these famous hymns, and we sing them again and again. The Tantum Ergo, which comes from the Pange Lingua that's sung during Holy Thursday, the entire hymn. Pange Lingua Glorioso. And It calls to mind our deep reverence for the Eucharistic presence of Jesus. St. Thomas Aquinas gives us the language to say that in the mystery of the Eucharist, we have the form of bread and wine, which changes in substance and becomes the body and the blood, soul and divinity of Jesus. This codification, if you would, of transubstantiation. But Thomas Aquinas, we could say, is a real true vocation during a time in the Middle Ages when certain people would seek out religious life as a way to basically have a career. St. Thomas Aquinas really wanted to become a Dominican friar. He was so convinced in his purposes. His family wanted him to join a local Benedictine monastery. And though this may seem a bit scandalous, his parents tried to introduce a prostitute into his room in order to get him to fall. And then send him off to the Benedictines in that regard. And he prayed for chastity. And so St. Thomas Aquinas is often attributed for being a saint to look to for praying for chastity. He was given, it is told, a cincture, a mystical cincture by the angels that would help him to remain chaste. And so he escaped from the apartment that his parents had locked him in and tried to introduce the prostitute into, and eventually became a Dominican friar. And we celebrate him today. It's kind of ironic that we Franciscans are here at this parish, but it goes to show that even if there's rivalry among Dominicans and Franciscans, that we still love each other. So today we pray in a special way for St. Thomas Aquinas' intercession, since he is the patron of our parish, that we might have the same love for learning about God, but also the same love for encountering God, most especially in the Eucharist.